For over 15 years, Saturdays and Illegal Curve have been synonymous with one another. With insight, analysis, and interviews regarding the Winnipeg Jets, the Manitoba Moose, and all around the NHL, here are Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mindell. The Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by Play Now, the official sports betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets, starts now.
Trade deadline in the rear view mirror, the push to the playoffs, maybe, begins in earnest today. Good morning, Winnipeg. Good morning, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this morning on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms, we say good morning, universe, and welcome to a very busy day of Illegal Curve broadcasts, starting now with the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Later tonight, after the Jets and General Manager Patrick Allvin and the Vancouver Canucks, it's going to be the Illegal Curve post-game show. So we got you covered all the way through, from nuts to bolts, with everything to do with the Winnipeg Jets on this Saturday morning. Mr. Ginsburg, we started a couple minutes late. True or false, it's because you stopped for a coffee?
It is true. I stopped for my 7-Eleven French cappuccino.
Cappuccino?
Yeah, I'm pretty fancy because I get it at 7-Eleven. That's why I'm fancy, Drew. But yes, That's why we were a couple of minutes late.
No, not we. You.
True, me. Yeah, so I can be fine, boys. If you want to, charge me, what is it? $2.50, I think, is the fine, right?
Well, we don't want to put you into bankruptcy, so we'll make it $1.50 today instead.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah,
David, good to see you this morning.
Good to see you boys too. You're right, Drew. It was funny. I think I wrote in the morning papers today, as you guys synchronized your coffee drinking, that it was a busy day, even though it wasn't really a busy day. There was only one Jets trade to talk about, but there was still lots to discuss because
there's lots of call-ups, Dave.
Lots of we learned from GM Kevin Cheveldayoff what the sort of go forward plan is going to be with respect to which players are going to be papered down to the Moose. I guess I can say it now. Elias Salamonson, Brad Lambert, those guys will both be available for the Calder Cup playoffs, even though they're both up with the Jets. And Isak Rosen, he will be a full-time Jet. He will not be available to the Jets, even though he's immediately
not available to the Moose, you mean?
Sorry, not available to the Moose, even though he's the Moose leading scorer by a lot, Ezzy. And then Ville Heinola is also not papered down. So the Moose will not have Ville Heinola for the playoffs. They, of course, had him for most of the season, but he will not be available to the playoffs. Cheveldayoff said he'll be a full-time Jet. So that means the Jets have made 2 of their 5 potential recalls, 4 of which can be up with the big club at one time. So that was kind of the notable. But like I said, we spent 30 minutes with Kevin Cheveldayoff yesterday. That's fully on the YouTube channel. Don't watch it now, but you can watch it at some point. Make sure you throw the thumbs up on that one. And we heard from head coach Scott Arniel. He spoke about Logan Stanley, Luke Schenn departing. We spoke with him before the Tanner Pearson trade, which came towards the end. So even though it wasn't busy, it was very busy. But we had you covered on illegalcurve.com.
There you go. We'll know in about 25 minutes' time. That's when the Jets hit the ice for morning skate as they face off against the Canucks on the second half of a back-to-back. The Canucks they were in Chicago last night and they won, so they didn't arrive to Winnipeg until the wee hours of the morning. So that's going to be, theoretically, a tired Vancouver Canucks team.
Hold on. Did you just say that the Vancouver Canucks won a hockey game?
They did. They beat the Chicago Blackhawks last night. They beat them handily, I might add. What was the final?
6-3.
3, yeah. They doubled up the Blackhawks last night.
Canucks, 2 awful teams playing hockey.
No question about it. But that's where the Jets opponent, that's the latest on the Jets opponent, the Vancouver Canucks. And they're going to be, of course, a tired bunch, and they've lost some players off their roster, probably not as many as people expected, given that the whole fire sale idea. But we'll see when the Canucks head to Winnipeg to face the Jets later tonight. But as I was saying, the Jets in their morning skate will be interesting in terms of the new forward lines and some insight into the D pairings. We're expecting Josh Morrissey to return to the Winnipeg Jets lineup tonight. He shed the non-contact jersey, and all indications were that Morrissey is going to be back in the Jets lineup atop the left side, PP1 for the Winnipeg Jets. They haven't had him since, of course, the Olympic break started, given that he got injured overseas in Italy. But let's get into what happened at the trade deadline for the Winnipeg Jets. So it was Thursday night after the Jets had that impressive victory against the Tampa Bay Lightning. that the first trade broke, the bigger certainly of the two trades, and that was the one that saw Luke Schenn and Logan Stanley head out of town, head to upstate New York, where they are now members of the Buffalo Sabres. And in return, the Jets got, as Dave mentioned, Isak Rosen. He is the sort of centerpiece of that deal.
By the way, you guys have mastered that pronunciation.
Well, I probably said it about 30 times yesterday.
I had a good story to bring up. My daughter, I was telling both of my kids that the Jets made some trades, right? Like they don't really understand the trade deadline. So I was explaining the trade deadline to them. I just showed them pictures on Hockey DB of the two guys that the Jets acquired. Mm-hmm. And I said, this guy's name looks like Isaac Rosen, but it's pronounced Isak Rosen. And my daughter said, why can't it just be pronounced Isaac Rosen? And it was funny.
Make our lives a lot easier, that's for sure.
The pronunciation, I saw Danielle, I retweeted Danielle Bain of TSN, tweeted it out, the pronunciation guide. It is Isak Rosen. So compliments, Drew, to you and Dave for pronouncing it right.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, I got it from Danielle's tweet as well. So kudos to Danielle for doing us all a solid.
Well, for the record, I forced Danielle to actually pronounce it. I was like, come on, Danielle, what does it actually say? I'm not going to read it phonetically. I want you to actually pronounce it. So when she did, then I was like a monkey, I was able to mimic her.
There you
go.
And
Dave, contrary to popular belief, it's not Jacob Brisson, it's just Jacob Bryson.
That's
okay,
true.
There you go.
Confirmed.
Thank you. Get that.
Confirmed.
And so speaking of Jacob Bryson, he was also part of that trade. He is a pending unrestricted free agent, left side defenseman, depth defenseman is largely the role he's played. Puck mover, not a big physical guy, but that's sort of primarily the role he's played throughout his NHL career so far. So the Jets are getting an audition. They're getting a 20-game evaluation of Bryson to decide if they want to keep him in the fold for next year, assuming he wants to stay in the fold, and time will tell on that front. And then the other two picks, a 2027 second-round pick and a 2026 fourth-round pick. A second-round pick and a fourth-round pick being what the Jets traded for Luke Schenn, last year at the deadline. So in some way, shape, or form, they sort of recoup what they have traded for Luke Schenn. That's the headline trade. Then the secondary trade, also between the Jets and the Sabres, late in the day yesterday, Tanner Pearson for a 7th-round pick in the 2026 draft. Again, not a lot of insight needed on that one. It was get what you can for Tanner Pearson. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, the only thing I was going to add before Ez jumps in is, does that mean that the reason why you couldn't get through to Jarmo, Ezzy, is because, Drew, is because Chevy and him had direct lines of communication the entire time?
Blocked. Yeah.
So you had no means of getting through to him because his phone was literally just connected to Kevin Cheveldale.
I could call him now and have a chat with him, but that would be awkward when we're on the air. I don't think that he'd want to necessarily, he's probably got other things. I don't know if the Sabres play today, but I'm not sure that he's necessarily taking my calls at this moment, but that's okay. I can accept that. Jarmo and I will break bread in the summer and, get back into good terms.
Yeah. Well, those hardcore IC fans will remember back in the day when we had the NHL This Week show.
Yes.
We had Jarmo Kekalainen on, and he was very insightful when he was the GM of the Blue Jackets.
And it was, the reason why I have his number, it goes back to that point. Normally when, we've had the opportunity on previous broadcasts and previous shows to interview GMs and other, illuminary from around the NHL. And usually they call into you to the studio, or you have to call into a media, one of the communications people with the team, and then they patch you through to the general manager, whatever it might be. But I remember in dealing with, I think there's 2 general managers, if I recall correctly, Jarmo Kekalainen and Jim Nill. We're like, yeah, here's my number. Go ahead. Just give me a call whenever you guys need it. I'm like, okay.
Former Winnipeg Jet Jim Nill.
That too, yeah. And also a well-regarded general manager, of course.
Absolutely.
For the Dallas Stars, one of the best around in the league doing his thing.
Yeah, I wanted to. Sorry, Drew. Just before you continue, to Dave's point about the Jets and the Sabres and Kekalainen and Chevy probably spending the whole day on the phone. They were making so many trades. I thought we were going to see maybe Brendan Lemieux and Drew Stafford come back to Winnipeg, guys. I was, the old school Evander Kane trade, right? Involving Tyler Myers, right? But let's get into this trade because I think it's a really intriguing trade. Obviously, I'm talking about the Schenn Stanley trade, not the Tanner Pearson for a 7th-rounder trade.
Well, let's talk about. So yes, we can talk about the Jets in general and their trade deadline activities. Mm-hmm. So Gus Nyquist obviously doesn't go anywhere. Cole Koepke doesn't go anywhere. Jonathan Toews, as a pending UFA, also doesn't go anywhere. So it wasn't that every pending UFA on the Jets left because, again, we didn't really expect there to be much of a market for Gus Nyquist, despite the fact he was high up on a lot of the trade bait boards, entering the trade deadline. He ends up staying with the Winnipeg Jets. But all in all, when you look at the returns from around the NHL, and again, focusing on the Stanley and the Schenn trade, and not less so the 7th round pick for Tanner Pearson, the consensus seems to be, and I would tend to agree with it, is that the Jets did pretty okay, that they did pretty well. You get again, Rosen has been a guy who's produced at the AHL level, who has never been able to really stick at the NHL level. Now the Jets have an opportunity and have a need for a young scoring forward. Fast with some speed. The Jets have had that need for a while, and now they get it. And so Rosen is going to certainly get every opportunity to do so, to prove that he's more than just, one of the best goal scorers at the AHL level. That in and of itself is, of course, a worthwhile gamble from the Winnipeg Jets perspective. And then to add to it by getting that 2nd and that 4th back, albeit not this year is the 2nd, it's next year, and the 4th this year. Again, I think, to his credit, and Kevin Cheveldayoff has not had a good season, this was probably one of the better days he's had this year since last year, and probably since last year's trade deadline, where he also didn't have a really good day. This has been one of the better days that he's had in a while from the Jets' perspective.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, when you look at this trade, you can almost break the Stanley Schenn trade up into 2 parts, right? Like you can almost break it up into, Schenn for the 2nd and 4th round picks, and then Stanley for Jacob Bryson and Isak Rosen, right? Like you can almost break it up into 2 different trades because, like Drew said, you're getting a 2nd and 4th round pick that you gave to Nashville last year, or was it to Pittsburgh? Was it to Pittsburgh or Nashville?
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, it was to Pittsburgh.
Yeah. But it's a reasonable assument because he was on Nashville, then got traded.
Yeah, I forgot there for a second. I was pretty sure it was Pittsburgh, Dave. But yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a few things here. You have to look at it. I always like to look at trades from both teams' perspectives, and I know you guys do as well. Obviously, we're focused on the Jets' perspective here, but I think, Buffalo, they obviously wanted size. They wanted some depth on their defense. That's clear. And they were willing to give up the draft picks, but also a prospect who Scott Wheeler, by the way, had ranked 4th, and he was ranked by the Hockey News. He was, I believe, 81st, or he was around 80 in terms of the top 100 prospects. So this guy, like Drew mentions, like everybody can, go to Hockey DB and see his AHL stats, right? He's near a point a game, 37 points, something like that in 43 games, right? And so everybody can see that. So clearly he's got talent and he's producing at the AHL level. But like Drew said, he hasn't been able to stick in that that Buffalo Sabres system. And we know that Buffalo team is very good. And they've got lots of prospects that have passed Rosen, like whether that's a Jack Quinn or, prior to that, whether that's a JJ Peterka who was traded to Utah, right? So Rosen is very interesting, right, guys? And if to Drew's point, if he's a guy, that is in your lineup, either on the 2nd line, 3rd line, 4th line, whatever, I think that's a huge win considering that you were going to lose Stanley and Schenn regardless, right? Like they were not coming back. So I think this is really good asset management. That word has been thrown out a lot. I think Chevy did a really good job here. Jacob Bryson obviously is a depth defenseman, right, guys? Like he's going to have an opportunity to play on the 3rd pair. Wouldn't be surprised if Bryson's paired up with Heinola, Dave, to be honest with you, considering that Morrissey's back.
Well, Fleury will stay in, I would imagine.
Yeah, Fleury's going to be down your left side now. It's going to be Morrissey, Sandberg, again.
Yeah, so Fleury and Bryson probably?
I don't think Bryson's necessarily...
he's probably your 7th guy to start, I would imagine. If you're going to keep Heinola up and because remember, you're still potentially, if you can get a good run out of Heinola, there's nothing that says you can't trade him. You can trade him to it. You can still trade him. It won't be eligible for the playoffs. You can still make a trade.
Yeah, but who's acquirer for what?
Well, I mean, you never know. I mean, maybe a team sees Drew.
That to Dave's point, that would be an AHL acquisition, right, Dave? Because
no, he's not AHL.
No, he's not AHL. No. I'm just saying that, like, sometimes, again, look, the Jets traded. Did they not trade Kevin Hayes after the fact to Pittsburgh? Was it no?
So you're talking about trading him before free agency opens up.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, at this point, from any trade that happens between now and free agency, look. The reality is he was on PP1. Like, let's be realistic. The point is, if he acquits himself well and he plays a lot of games, maybe they look at him and they go, "Well, we made a mistake with him." I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm just saying that you, in theory, could still flip him for something at this point. At some point, not again. that he's eligible for the playoffs in either league, actually, really.
Well, but I mean, is he even going to play for the Jets? Is he in the top 6 for the Jets? I don't think he is, Ville Heinola.
Who are you talking about? Heinola.
I'm talking about Heinola and Bryson for that matter. I don't think either of them are necessarily in the top 6 for the Jets moving forward.
I heard Scott Arniel say that both players were going to play tonight. Am I wrong in saying that, Dave?
Well, I don't think there's room for both guys playing tonight, assuming Morrissey's in.
If Morrissey's in, no, because you got Morrissey, DeMello, you got Sandberg and Salamonson, and then you've got a Fleury and one of those two.
Or Isaac Phillips.
But did Scott Arniel not say that
Isaac Phillips is with the Moose, Drew?
Didn't they? I thought they put him down and called him back up.
No.
Okay.
Did you not? Boy, someone wasn't listening when I was talking. I
think that was Salamonson that they did that.
The only 2 recalls are Salamonson and Lambert.
Okay.
So Lambert's going to play. Lambert, look, I think the bigger focus as he is not, I mean, look, whether Heinola plays or Bryson plays, they're essentially they're about an inch or 2 difference between each other, but they're basically the same player.
But they're both going to be playing on their offside, though, is also a bit
That's
of a
fine.
factor here.
Well, I mean, but both can play it. I mean,
okay, before you guys go too far down the rabbit hole, I just wanted to clarify for some people, because not everybody knows what we're talking about here. Like, Dave, maybe you want to explain why Salamonson was sent down and then recalled, because some people might not know why they do that.
Yeah, so essentially and Matthew Hyman asked in the chat, and I responded to him, but I'll just make sure that folks who are listening on the podcast, as you're right, know exactly what we're talking about. But essentially what you used to be able to do was you could paper a guy down and then not actually send them down to the AHL. The rule changed in the CBA. So essentially, in order for you to send a guy down, because if you wanted a player to be eligible to play in the Calder Cup playoffs in the AHL, they had to be on the roster. And then they've switched it now, though, to the rule being they have to be on the roster and they have to play in a game before they get recalled. So it was almost like to try and get away from this idea of papering guys. But then what the Oilers did this week was they played Andrew Mangiapane in one shift for Bakersfield, which made him eligible to be recalled to the NHL. And then, of course, more desirable to be traded. But ultimately, that was the rule. The exception to the rule is that on trade deadline day, you don't actually have to physically send the guys down. You can just paper them. So that's the only other. If they would have done the deal, if they would have done this today, they'd have to play against the Marlies tomorrow in order to be recalled. But because they did it on Friday, any guys that get sent down can, in fact, be recalled without. So the Jets, sent down Walker Duehr. They sent down Isaac Phillips, both of whom played in last night's Moose game, their 3-2 win over the Marlies. And yet the guys they recalled in Brad Lambert and Elias Salamonson are both eligible to play in the Calder Cup playoffs, but are now with the Jets. And like I said, you're entitled, previously it was 4 recalls. Now you're entitled to 5 recalls, but only having 4 up at once. So now the Jets have now used 2 of those, being Lambert and Salamonson.
There you go. Well explained there, Dave. So I apologize. I didn't realize. I thought they papered Phillips and then brought him back up, but I
all good.
Wrong on that front. So you're right. So one of Heinola,
I'm gonna paper you in a second, Drew.
One of Heinola and or Bryson are going to play for the Winnipeg Jets tonight, because Colin Miller, we know, has had a setback, so he's not an option on the right side for the Winnipeg Jets. Yeah. So the left side for the Jets is sort of, is relatively healthy, with Morrissey, assuming, as we all do, that he's going to be in the lineup, and we'll know more in about 10 minutes time when the Jets hit the ice for morning skate. Morrissey and Sandberg on the left side, Salamonson and DeMello on the right side. Third pairing left side likely to be Hayden Fleury, and then on the right side it's going to be one of Bryson or Heinola, at least for this game, and then who knows moving forward.
And just quickly, if Morrissey doesn't play, which we'll learn in the next 10 minutes, or 15, 20 minutes, whatever, we've got Colby Spence down at Canada Life. He's going to get video for us. He's going to get pictures for us, and he can also inform us as to what's happening down there. But if Morrissey is not in the thing, then Drew, both guys would play, of course, like as he said.
Exactly right. And both, this according to Mitchell Clinton, who just put this out on Twitter, both Roseanne and Bryson are on the ice for morning skates for the Winnipeg.
Roseanne, by the way, Drew, wearing number 27.
Yeah, a little. Well,
I thought that was funny.
Yeah. That the Jets would be, if he's Nikolai Ehlers light, the Jets would be running to the bank and saying thank you very much for that being the case, given their dearth of offensive upside anywhere beyond that first line for the Jets at this point in time.
And as someone asked me if Rochester's been here to Manitoba, so if I have any firsthand viewings of him, and I said no, the Rochester Americans do not play against the Manitoba Moose, so I have not unfortunately seen him. But let's be realistic. This is a guy the Jets scouted, right? He was picked in the 2021 first round. I think he was a 14th overall selection, as we've talked about. But that was the Chaz Lucius draft. And I'm saying that the Jets, Kevin Cheveldayoff told us yesterday in the media availability that this is a guy that they were watching, and they watched him closely. And he was obviously someone they've had interest. He said that even after he was drafted by the Sabres, that this is a player that they've had interest in. So they kind of get that first rounder to kind of fill out that gap because, of course, of the unfortunate circumstances with Chaz Lucius having to retire. So now you have that sort of player that's going to be from that draft class. That's going to be the sort of guy who you expect to kind of get into the lineup and maybe make an impact. And he's, like Kevin Cheveldayoff said, he's a guy they've scouted. And the reason why Buffalo is willing to part with him is because there's a lot of guys that they have in that sort of prospect pool that are similar. But the one thing he does, which none of the other prospects are doing at the American level, is, as Drew said, he's scoring. And he's scoring a lot. And that is something that, you can say, like, again, the Moose don't score a ton of goals, and they're a very good defensive team. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to see the success of these prospects actually having, some impact on the score sheet. And Rosen is definitely doing that, or definitely was doing that for the Rochester Americans. And we'll see. He's going to get a great opportunity, and he's immediately, along with Brad Lambert, going to make this Jets roster a lot faster.
And Dave, one of those other guys, young prospects that's kind of made Rosen expendable is your boy Zach Benson, right? Who used to play for the Winnipeg Ice. He's having a good year for the Sabres. So yeah, there's a lot of good young forwards on that team. And just quickly, Drew, I think this trade has the possibility to be a huge win for Chevy. Like, has Chevy done it again, boys? I think he might have. Like, with this trade, like, again, I don't think that Rosen is going to turn into Sidney Crosby, but if he's able to, quickly as an aside, I love the fact that you're going to get to see Rosen right in the lineup immediately. So the Jets are going to get to see him for 20 plus games, and they're going to get to evaluate what they have. And, whether he ends up being a second line guy, third line guy, whatever, I mean, if he's able to, produce and give you some valuable minutes in your lineup, like Dave said, he's proven it at the AHL level. Now the question is Rosen a full-time NHL guy? And then you throw in Bryson, and like we said, he's a free agent, so he's more of a depth guy. But then when you throw in the picks, we know that the Jets have turned some of these picks that they've acquired in trades into really good players, right? So I think overall, when you're just looking at the Schenn Stanley trade, you have to give Chevy a really good mark. Whether you're going to give him a B+ or an A, I think he gets a high mark for the work that he did on this move. I think, Dave. Well,
you turned two guys that were not going to be members of the Winnipeg Jets next season. I mean,
hey,
yes,
he left the door open for Logan Stanley.
But you had to trade Logan Stanley at the deadline. I mean, that's my point. Is that it wasn't the time nor the place to re-sign him. There'd be no reason to do that from Stanley's perspective, to forego seeing what free agency could bring him. And from the Jets' perspective, this was an opportunity to restock the cupboard a little bit. And Kevin Cheveldayoff did well in how he did so yesterday. And then to throw in Luke Schenn to boot on top of that, again, the Jets had one player in Stanley who elevated his return with his play this season. They had many others that diminished their return based on their performance this season, Luke Schenn being one of them. And so we took those two players, put them together. For whatever reason, Buffalo wanted both big players to be on their defense moving forward, or at least as members of their defensive core moving forward. And Kevin Cheveldayoff managed to do a sort of a two birds, one trade sort of situation, and seems to have done well. We don't yet know what Rosen's going to be. Nobody does. Anybody who's telling you that he's 100% a AHL scorer and not an NHL scorer, well, that's their evaluation and nothing is certain. Anyone who says he's 100% an NHL caliber player, that's their evaluation. Nothing is certain on that front either. But the gamble is worth it. And what I like about it the most is that it's a guy who could theoretically help you in the immediacy. This is a trade both for the future in the second and the fourth. But those second and fourths, if they pan out, aren't going to be members of the Winnipeg Jets for another 3 or 4 years down the road, most likely. So instead, you got a player who can help you this year and next year if everything goes according to the Jets' best laid plans. And that is the most important part, because the Jets are a team in desperate need of reinforcements in the middle of their lineup. And that's what hopefully Rosen is going to bring to the table, Dave.
Yeah, and what have we been saying on this show for what seemingly months, we said as soon as the trade deadline is over, now the Jets still technically have a shot at the playoffs, so they're not gonna call everyone up. But the fact of the matter is that you want to see
San Jose lost to St. Louis last night, so they didn't get the 2 points that they should have, instead only getting 1 point by losing in overtime.
Well, so the fact is, and look, the Jets are 7 points back. I know that's, and they've got 3 or 4 teams to leapfrog. I understand it where they stand, but as he says, until you're mathematically eliminated, you got to still have that conversation, because the NHL is so middling when it comes to this part of the standings. But ultimately, you're giving a guy, and guess what? You're also giving Brad Lambert a shot. You're saying, listen, here is a 20-game audition, and you're going to get a chance to be an everyday NHLer, because Nino Niederreiter is not coming back anytime soon. Vlad Nemestikov, we don't know, but it doesn't sound like he's anytime soon either. So the fact of the matter is, the 2 guys who could be blocking players aren't available to the Winnipeg Jets. So I like to joke about, like, the injuries making better decisions for the Jets coaching staff, but ultimately, this is what you want. It's what I was advocating. It's what I think a lot of us were advocating, was the idea that you give these guys the chance to be evaluated in the NHL against NHL talent. And they're going to have some bumps, and Roseanne does sound like he has some defensive deficiencies, but he can put the puck in the back of the net. And that's important for a team that hasn't scored a ton. So we'll see what happens with everything. But I definitely think, one of the things one of the main themes of our conversation with Kevin Cheveldayoff, boys, was, your team got older and slower. And then he sure seemed to acknowledge that they're not as old and they're not as slow anymore. So
he struck the right note tone-wise, I thought, in his press conference yesterday, after the combative press conference earlier in the season. When I guess that would have been 6 weeks ago, maybe 8 weeks ago at this point, sort of that mid-season press conference where the talk was about Chad Lucius and whatever else, instead of sort of taking accountability. I thought he struck a better tone with the press conference that he held yesterday at the Matt Frost Media Center. Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press is going to join us in a second. I see that he's backstage. Before we bring him in, some sad news to report this morning. Former Winnipeg Jets captain, Jets 1.0 captain, and of course a longtime member of the Chicago Blackhawks and a member of their broadcasting team for many years, Troy Murray, passed away earlier this morning.
Really?
Yeah, so Troy Murray, who he passed away, he's been battling cancer for a number of years. So that just came across the wire a few minutes ago. So I wanted to mention that. He did, of course, he was captain of the Jets for the 2 years that he was here back in 91, 92. Only played 103 games for the Jets, but was obviously a well-respected veteran after spending 8 years with the Blackhawks to start his career, a member of the University of North Dakota as well. So I wanted to not be negligent and mention in passing the passing of Troy Murray, sending our condolences to his loved ones and to his friends and family. And with that, we bring into the program Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press. He joins us here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by our friends at Play Now. And Hammer, I must say, we were doing the post-game show. I don't know if it was Thursday's post-game show or if it was Tuesday's post-game show. Mm-hmm. And we, of course, bring in Scott Arneal's post-game press conference live here on the program. And we're, we're hearing the questions being asked, and we're used to hearing from Murat, and we're used to hearing from Mikey Mack, and we're used to hearing from Weber. And we're like, is that Hammer? Is Hammer getting into back into Hammer the press time conference role? And so with that in mind, we're thrilled to welcome you back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Well, I'm glad that if I had known the threshold was getting a question in on the head coach to get back on the show, I would have tried to muscle my way in there earlier. Never mind. But it was, it's funny. It's good to be back amongst the guys and gals of the Winnipeg Jets beat. For those who are unaware at this point, I'm not back. I'm not this, everyday Winnipeg Jets reporter, but I have taken on the contract with the Canadian Press. So Judy Owen is transitioning out of her roles that she's been doing for several years, and has allowed me to kind of get back into the seat for games. So you'll hear me post game probably, and you'll hear me if there's some kind of off day stories as a freelance contract would permit. So I'll be around a bit more. Definitely be involved a lot more than I have been, but and looking forward to that. So I get a little bit more of a front row seat. So my opinions I'll be talking to players and people a lot more. You'll be hearing my voice a lot more in those scrums.
Now here, Jeff, the question I have for you before Drew gets in is, does that make you contractually obligated to bring gum like Judy always used to bring gum?
I feel like it's not it's like the biggest unwritten rule of all unwritten rules. Like, not only do I need to bring gum, so I'm also taking over her role with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers coverage. So she's known, and I think she's known for this in hockey for sure as well. I hope she is, where she brings Halloween candy.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have to bring, I didn't take into consideration in my contract the investment in gum I would have to do, the role of Halloween candy as well. And I feel like I'm almost having to become everybody's adopted mother now too. So it's just like people come for me for advice that they weren't coming for before just because I sit in that seat. So it's been an interesting transition for Judy out of it. It's been a fascinating transition to me into it. So it's been fun, guys.
Yes, Jeff Hamilton joining us here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Hammer, we were talking about the trade deadline. Of course, that's come and gone. And, the general consensus is that Kevin Cheveldayoff did a pretty good job in acquiring what he did in exchange for Logan Stanley, in exchange for Luke Schenn. I mean, clearly the rest of the pending UFAs for the Jets were diminished assets. Not that I don't think that necessarily Cole Koepke was on the market, and Jonathan Toews, we know, wasn't on the market. So all in all, taking a macro view of the Winnipeg Jets at the trade deadline, how would you assess Kevin Cheveldayoff and the work that he did?
Well, it's interesting you say the macro view, because the micro view, I think, is what you just described, right? If you look at the micro vision of this trade deadline, with what they were dealing with the mission they had, with the job that many of them expected to do, you can say, oh yeah, like that's a good return. Like, I'm not going to sit here, guys, and go like, what an amazing return, what an awesome situation. Like, they didn't know what they were going to get for Logan Stanley and Luke Schenn. Like, they wasn't going to be part of the group and both expiring contracts, and what a get. Let's just pump the brakes here. Like, this is kind of being viewed as a long-term vision. Look, I get this Rosen guy has a lot of potential here from the AHL, but this is a guy who hasn't made his mark in the NHL. And if I'm going to go off the scouting report of our friend Patrick Williams, who we all know watches the AHL a lot, this guy's knock is his defensive game. Well, the Jets build their game off a defensive game. So are we really thinking some future long-term, solution here is a guy who's recording 20-goal seasons in the AHL to fix this middle six? I mean, I don't want to be too down on it. I think there's potential here, and I think this guy could really be part of the puzzle moving forward as they continue to hopefully make smart roster decisions, especially this offseason. So I do see it as a long-term vision in that way, but I don't really see it as a whole lot that you can really be kind of excited about. You got back picks that you lost in what were viewed as bad deals, and really when you look at the scouting department here in Winnipeg, like, I don't know if the confidence is at an all-time high that you're going to, that those picks are going to pan out, right? I think the one thing that's been really lacking with this organization, it's been a byproduct of the fact they've been successful in recent years. But when you take a microscope of this team, like, Cole Perfetti is really the only developed guy here, the recent most developed guy in-house. And it's like, he's getting kind of up there in age and talking about his next contract, right? He's well past his rookie contract year, right? So, I think there's an issue there. Overall, as the deal goes, I think it's a good one. You take the macro vision, and then you start thinking, okay, guys, why were we even here in the first place? Like, we're celebrating the worst case scenario at the draft. Like, this is a team that went from a President's Trophy winning season that was supposed to build on that, and everything that they learned from the long playoff run and the Manitoba Miracle and the disappointment from the Dallas series was all supposed to accumulate into the offseason with a couple different pieces here or there, and then it's been a nightmare ever since. So the macro vision of this is a disaster, right? Like, I mean, we're never supposed to be here. What do you mean getting rid of this guy? What do you mean at this point in time, the Jets are supposed to be adding those finishing touches to what was supposed to be a juggernaut. So, it's a different perspective. Obviously, that's life in professional sports. So it's not like this is the first time it's happened, to an NHL team where they haven't lived up to expectations. They've had to adjust. So I guess I'll leave it on that with a little bit of a positive, you were put in a situation where you did need to deliver. And when you hear some of the things that Kevin Cheveldayoff was saying, it sounds like this kind of, I don't want to say came late, but this was the most aggressive push. And it required, well, you have to take Luke Schenn, well, you have to retain half his salary. Like, it really did become a negotiation. And when you do look at the pieces that are leaving and the pieces that are coming in, it's a net positive for Winnipeg, no doubt.
Hammer, further to your point about, the off season and the fact that this current season has not gone the way that the Jets want. Everybody knows that, even though, they still have a 8 or 9% chance of making the playoffs. We know that there's a good chance that they won't be making the playoffs. And I agree with you when you're talking about Roseanne and Bryson. I mean, these guys are, they're depth pieces at best, right? Roseanne obviously has the top 6 upside, but I don't think anybody's necessarily going to put him in pencil in that top 6, even though the Jets will probably give him, I think you'd agree, an opportunity maybe on the second line, maybe with
he's on the third line to start the morning
think
stage.
About how not sure. to interrupt you, but think of how sad that is that I saw tweets and reports yesterday that the Jets should be looking for a centerman to build around this guy, and I'm thinking, holy smokes. Like, anyway, sorry, Ed.
People get excited, Jeff. You know that. They always like the new shiny object.
For sure, but geez. Okay,
well,
go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, no, well, that's the question I was going to ask you about, the off season. And once the season is over, everybody knows there's major holes that Chevy's going to have to fill on this roster, mainly in the top 6 and when it comes to secondary scoring, right? And the big one being second line center. And I've said this many times, in the last month on the show, like, I don't see a clear path unless the Jets are going to shock us all and bring in a really good second line center via free agency. I don't see a really clear path to acquiring a second line center unless it's via trade, including that first round pick. And I realize, there's a lot of members of Tank Nation that want that pick to be as high as possible, maybe even as high as like 3rd or 4th overall. But it looks like it's kind of be in the, 6 to 10 range. But as far as you're concerned, is that something that you're as curious as me to see if Chevy will move that? Because it seems like, to get that second line, to get a good second line center, like let's say a Robert Thomas type of quality center, you're going to have to give up prospects, but also that first round pick is one of the biggest assets you have right now to trade.
I think it's a great question, as because, that pick, depending on where it is, if the Jets tank and they get right down to the cellar and we're looking at a top 5 pick here for Winnipeg, you're gonna keep that pick, obviously, in your growth with the belief that you can build, and this will be, you can still kind of view this year as an off year and try to take those pieces and figure it out for this season. I do think it becomes a prime piece because they do need a win. They do need a win now center. They need a win now center because they promised when they signed Mark Scheifele to a long-term extension, when they signed Connor Hellebuyck to a long-term extension, I'm sure when they signed Kyle Connor to a long-term extension, it came with the promise that they'd be competing for Stanley Cups every year, that they would be spending to the cap, that they'd be committing, right, to this team being a winner. So if you're going in, if you feel like you can get those ready now pieces with a high pick, even if it is, I guess, with a top 5 pick, if you can get the right deal that can fit in some, a major piece, heck, maybe even a top centerman, dare I suggest, right? Like Mark Scheifele is certainly a 1 center, but, he could be a 2 center too, depending on who you can pick up. So, I do think that becomes a piece you have to think about, but I think this offseason is incredibly daunting for the Winnipeg Jets because I think you're taking when you look at what Kevin Cheveldayoff said, right? When we play the way that we know we need to play, we can be a successful team. We can be a President's winning trophy team. So they in their mind, they have the blueprint. They know what it looks like. They have the coaching staff who has executed that blueprint. They need to find the players. That's the great, and it's not just finding a top end number 2 centerman. It's finding speed. It's finding guys who can play that game more often than not. Not everyone's going to be able to play that game 82 games a season, but you need to be consistent enough to play that game and do that ask. They brought in a bunch of players last year who couldn't do that. Tanner Pearson, Gustav Nyquist, all those aging Jonathan Toews, all those aging players that couldn't play the hard, fast style that the Jets were exhibiting for 2 years when they were up in the standings. Now you hear them talking about how they got to get on top of teams. You know what teams describe how they get on top of teams? Slow teams. getting on top of teams is holding the lid on a team that's fast. The Jets used to be the ones where teams need to get on top of them. Now they're getting on top of other clubs, and that's a real issue. And I don't think that that's the style the Jets want to play. That's a style I think they've adopted to, and we've seen them carve out points here since the Olympic break, but that's not the identity that they want. So this offseason, while it is important to get those key pieces, it is to get that number 2 centerman, gentlemen, that we've been talking about for the better part of a decade here. But but at the very least, they've proven that they can survive without that person, but they cannot survive without that number 2, bona fide number 2 centerman, because they've complemented the pieces. And this is the other problem, gentlemen, is that guys like Nino Niederreiter aren't getting faster. Vlad Nemestikov aren't getting faster. And the last time I checked, surgeries and off-season work does not help you with your speed. So that there's other things here where they're kind of aging out players who aren't able to do or at the have been taxed to do what they've been asking for the last few years. And at the same point, they brought in all these moving pieces in the last offseason that are not going to be here next year. So it's not even just about finding that spot. It's about finding an identity again. And when you have all those missing pieces and you need to fill them, you almost have to cross your fingers and hope that the pieces are going to work. You need to find the exact players that you need, because otherwise you find yourself in a situation much like we see this year, where you think you have that core that's going to carry everything and keep that identity and that consistency in place. But clearly that didn't work this year, and it wasn't enough to add aging veterans and leadership on the outside.
Well, Jeff, you're talking old and slow, so I'm going to go young and fast. And a guy who is going to get an audition and a little bit of runway here is Brad Lambert. So how significant do you think it is for him and for his, he was having a middling season. I've used that word a couple times already to describe the organization, but he wasn't having a particularly great year for the Manitoba Moose. It's not all about goals, but like we talked about, one thing about Roseanne, he at least is scoring at the AHL level, not something that a lot of the Jets prospects were doing with the Manitoba Moose. But from your perspective, we're looking at the lines. He's on a line with Cole Koepke and Morgan Barron. Well, one thing about that line, they're going to have some speed. But from your perspective, just how significant is this opportunity for a guy like Brad Lambert?
Yeah, I find it interesting when your prospects aren't scoring offense. It's all of a sudden, it's not all about offense, right? Yeah. This team was built on those guys that were producing at the AHL, the Kyle Connors, right? That came up into it. Even guys like Mason Appleton were getting it done at the AHL level before they came up. So, how big of an opportunity is it for him? It's massive. It's massive for any prospect in this point in their career who's trying to make that leap. It's particularly massive, I would argue, here in Winnipeg. These guys don't have an easy, channel to the NHL team. This isn't 2015 anymore. 2016, the year after that, where they gave the keys to the young kids, and the guys like Andrew Kopp benefited, from being kind of thrown into the deep end right away. They don't have that luxury here. The Jets believe they have a team that will compete for a Stanley Cup, so they're looking for complementary pieces and people who are really going to earn it. That's the other thing. I'm not saying that other clubs don't make their prospects earn it, but it feels like the Jets really make their prospects earn it. And, Brad Lambert needs to make a difference here. I think that Kevin Cheveldayoff made a very clear statement, guys, in his press conference about the Moose. Trust, how many times do you have to hear a GM say, he pretty much says, once these guys learn how to be a pro every day, they're going to get the opportunity to come up. And that means commitments to the weight room, commitments to lifestyle, diet, all these things. He's referring to these guys just not putting in the work. That's exactly what he said, or at least not I'm not saying he's calling them lazy bones, but he was pretty clear about not putting in the required amount of work to get the opportunity to come up here, right? To force a decision on the Winnipeg Jets. We've seen that the Jets are difficult, to crack that line, to crack that advancement or that promotion. But when you do, you get the opportunity. So, with Brad here and other, Chibrikov before him and other players, the cool picks of this team, it's massive for them to show this team that they can be those guys, because if they don't have those answers hanging into the summer, this team isn't going to be getting monthly reports from these guys in August and find out where they're at, and if where they're going. They're going to have an idea and an opinion of all these players by the time April hits, and if that opinion doesn't have them in the mix next year, they're going to go looking for those players. Right. And they're going to be, the interesting part is, and they're going to learn their lesson. They're going to be looking for younger players. The Tanner Pearsons and the Gustav Nyquists and the Jonathan Taves aren't coming in next season. It's going to be younger guys. And I think that's going to put a lot of pressure. So this is a massive, I mean, this is where the season shifts, right? I mean, obviously the potential of a playoff spot is there. It's in front of them. They're going to keep competing for it. And who knows, maybe they'll make it interesting, but the goal needs to be for those players to show the Winnipeg Jets organization, the Brad Lamberts, the rest of those guys that get this opportunity right now as they shift to kind of giving up on this season and showing that they belong here. And you can make some hay here. You can make some hay by giving a care, by showing that consistency. Maybe they didn't exactly earn it here at this point, but that doesn't matter. You're already up here. It's time to make the most of it. And hopefully, guys, that a lot of the guys can make that positive impression, because I know there's a lot of fans who want that youth movement. And I think when you look at other teams around the league, you look at the teams like the Anaheim Ducks, and you look at, and again, these are organizations who are drafting very high, so it's a little bit of a different prospect pool, but you like to see that youth movement. And I think that's the biggest concern for me with the Winnipeg Jets, guys, is that we're heading into version 2 of the Jets 2.0, where like the Bucklands and the, you know, like and the Wheelers or whatever take over this leadership all well into their 30s, and it limits this youthful confidence that comes up in behind them. And I feel like that's where we're trending, and that's not a good place. So I really do hope that the prospects push, show some confidence, and really demand this organization to fit them in, because the loyalty to this core, guys, it was shown in that press conference. It's going to be shown out for the next few years here. And, you know, I don't say like it or not. Of course, everyone's going to like the youth movement if it happens, but this team is not going to win the Stanley Cup with this core and just a bunch of guys they find out. They need to have that youth movement. They need to have those cheap contracts as part of the mix, so they can bring in, you know, the perfect complement and stay under what's been, you know, obviously an extended cap here.
How much faith do you have, though, Jeff, in the Jets being able to go out and get those, you know, find those players, be it from the pro scouting department or be it from the amateur scouting department, to come in and provide the necessary reinforcements? They failed miserably this offseason. You know, Kevin Cheveldayoff and his pro scouts, you know, didn't do a good enough job this offseason in evaluating the players that they brought in. The amateur scouting department hasn't hit any home runs in, you know, the second, third, fourth rounds as of late either. Regardless of the guy, Dave, guys who are on the roster. Forget about the guys who are years
fine.
away.
That's fine. That's fine.
Forget about the guys who are years away. The guys
you needed that qualifier, though. You needed that qualifier.
I qualified.
Salamonson, I would throw in there.
Okay, fine, but they haven't been. I mean, the scouting and the amateur scouting and the pro scouting has not been terrific over the last 5 years. I would say, I think is a fair comment. So, how much faith do you have, Jeff, that they can go out and do what's necessary to get these players? That the people who are in making these decisions are the right people making the decisions?
I think it's a great question. And, you know, like, who cares what Jeff Hamilton thinks about whether this management can do it in a certain respect? But when you look at history, I think it's okay to have some doubt, obviously, right? I mean, it's you know, if the best predictive of future, you know, is the past here, then yeah, like I could see some doubt. Guys, I feel like the person who really had, like, think about this for a second. This team was going and going and going, and they were having kind of success. It was a little bit of like a, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of situation where they'd have a connection. They'd have, you know, they get the good season out of this guy, but then everyone would be consistent. Then Rick Bowness came. And it was like he kind of like obviously slapped everyone silly in the organization as far as like what was in the locker room, obviously stripped the leadership or whatever. But then he identified a bunch of players that could play within the system. And then he stuck around. And then the year that he's gone, they don't identify those players. It was like, oh, we got the fix here. Like, and I'm not trying to put it all on Bones and say that he was whatever, but my point is that like you need an eye, like you wanted to play the way Rick Bowness wanted to play. I would be like asking him if he had like a consulting contract in the offseason to say like, you know, I mean, obviously he's doing some awesome things over in Columbus, and I'm kind of joking and kind of not, but like that, like you need to find someone who needs, like you understand the way you want to play, right? So like Scott Arniel, I think Scott Arniel understands, like Rick Bowness understood, the way they need to play, the way they wanted to play, right? Like the style in which they need to play, the style of player they need to play. And obviously there was a disconnect between the coaching staff and the general manager. And obviously you saw some comments, some probably more subtle, and then obviously pointed comments from Scott Arniel not too long ago about personnel when Kenny asked them about, you know, their lack of success in the 3-on-3 overtime, right? So like clearly there's, and there was some not so subtle times that Rick Bowness gave, Kevin Cheveldayoff, seemingly comments about like the roster, right? And what he needed. So I think at this point, this is, if you do believe that this is the core, you believe that this team can win. And I would say this, guys, like there's no one who knows this team and their capabilities better than Kevin Cheveldayoff in this organization. We can all make our assessments, but no one knows these players and personnel better. So they know what they need. They know what their system is. They got to do it. And they need to learn from the mistakes of last offseason and bring in those players who can bring that speed, because that's where it's headed. That's not where it's headed. That's where the NHL is. It's a faster game. And for years, the Jets had been able to keep up with those teams and even dictate the play. They've no longer been able to do that. They need to find players who can do that. And they also need to get bigger seasons from some of their guys in-house, right? You need bigger, like, the reality is, regardless if you're the Winnipeg Jets or any other team in the NHL, you need guys like Cole Perfetti to make massive steps at this point. You need guys like, remember Kyle Connor? Like, he jumped to a 30-goal season right away, right? Like, it wasn't much of a wait. So they need those guys. They not only need to bring guys in for their system, but they need everybody
to always
be
be a year away from being a year away.
Exactly. And that's been the case for Winnipeg with some of their younger guys, is they're a year away, from being a year away. And, you need some of that luck, right? You need some of that development luck. You need luck in all areas, right? You need special teams to be better. So that's certainly an area that carried the Jets last year and is a part of the game that carries any team that might have deficiencies in their 5-on-5 game. And that's been the problem. And that's been the Jets' problem this year. They just haven't gotten that help. And I bring up overtime as a last note because there are lots of games where they've lost in overtime, whereas they used to be that team that would, teams were probably scared to play when it went to 3-on-3, not so much anymore. So those are big points in the standings. Those could be, more of those games go their way, and we're looking at the Jets being a couple points out of the playoffs and not 7 or 8. So that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes in the NHL.
Hammer, your representation has informed us you need to be out at 9:55, so we don't want to annoy them. So at 9:54, we'll say thank you for that, and thank you for joining us this morning. Unless I'm wrong, and you can stick around. But that's
well. Hey, if you guys wanted, so I actually pushed my segment, my thing back. I was going to send it to later. So if you want to do another thing or keep going, we can do. So my representation's been put on hold. So if you wanted to put me on longer, we could. But if not,
okay. So let me ask you this. You mentioned Scott Arniel and some of his sort of, and I would agree with you, they're pointed comments directed at the general manager's office and the general manager's booth. It was just this week where he talked about, he basically just gave a one-word answer about personnel, talking about, he's limited in the options he has available to him. That's what personnel means from a coaching perspective. How would you assess the job that he's done? Forget about the personnel side of things and what he's been handed. Even a great chef can make a nice meal out of some poor ingredients. How would you assess Scott Arniel's performance?
Well, it's obviously Scott wears this too. It's not like, it's like Scott Arniel is the guy who was screwed over in all this. Obviously, like any team, he's had to deal with injuries and issues with key players. Obviously, losing Hellebuck for the time he did wasn't a great situation, particularly at the time in which he lost them. I think there's certainly areas that you can question. Even in that comment where he said personnel, right? That game alone, that they lost in overtime. I mean, he's starting Logan Stanley in 3-on-3 OT. Like that was never even a consideration, before. And so, and I'm not saying that, oh, look what he did here. He's costing the Jets. Again, he knows his players better than anybody else. And but I also would argue there might be some other things at play here. There's long been talk, right, about the seemingly impossible task of separating Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele. Like, do we really think that that's Scott Arniel's decision? I'm fully convinced that those guys, as they signed long-term contracts and as Kevin Cheveldayoff came out and shared with everybody that, these guys didn't just sign long-term contracts. They signed commitments to the team. And in that commitment from the Jets side was that they were going to have a say in things. Right? Like that's what Kevin Cheveldayoff said, like with all three of those players, essentially, certainly Mark Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck, that we want them to be a part of this. We want them to have a say in what we're doing. Obviously, he's the GM. So I'm thinking, what limitations does Scott Arniel have when it comes to the roster? Does he really not want to have, Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele on different lines, like two guys that can arguably drive their own line? Like, does he really not want to have that? Is he really afraid later into this, like, I kind of understand it in the early goings when it's your only line scoring, but like there has to be a certain time where you throw your hands up and go, we need to spread this out. And so I wonder what other, areas in which he is restricted. So, that I think factors into it. But at the same time, and I'm not saying that Kevin Cheveldayoff is saying this has to be your lineup every game and blah, blah, blah. But I do think there's things at play. There's showcasing players. There's doing certain things when your team is, double-digit points out of a playoff spot well into the season, right? Like there are certain things that I think he's limited to doing. Like you can't tell me that Logan Stanley's increase in ice time, logging 27 minutes the other game, wasn't part of the sales pitch to other teams as the deadline neared. You know what I mean? So like that's just over the last few weeks, I guess, but. Certainly Scott wears this, and I think he owns it. And I think if you see the press conferences, I don't think there's a guy who's more down in the dirt than Scott Arniel. Like, I mean, he's wearing this season, every day, every game, even after losses. The ones I've seen, have been in that room, even after those wins. I mean, he still seems exhausted this season. So, obviously he's trying to do his best to get things done. This is not a position he envisioned himself in after winning the President's Trophy last year. But I think he's shown his frustration, which I think has shown confidence in his position. Right? There's other coaches that might not want to take a subtle shot. That's the other thing too, guys. Like ambiguity. Don't be naive. Ambiguity, there's a point to ambiguity. Like if you're wondering, any coach that leaves his comments wondering if you're talking about the personnel here, the personnel from the season or whatever, knows exactly what he's doing. That's like, ambiguity is not your friend. It's a point to be made. And I think Scott made it in that comment. But like everybody else in this organization, he's disappointed. He wants better for this team. And he certainly wears it as much as anybody else, I guess.
Don't take candy from a stranger, but up in the press box, we are definitely going to take candy from Jeff Hamilton moving forward. Jeff, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Great insight, great analysis, great opinions as always. Be well, and we'll see you again soon, buddy.
Thanks for having me, guys. Always a pleasure, and I'll see you around the rink. Talk to you guys later.
Take care, Hammer. There he goes. Jeff Hamilton joining us this morning on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. That was a fun interview. Always great to catch up with our buddy Jeff. Commercial free for hour number 1. That's how we do it here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. When we return, the latest from downtown Winnipeg, where the Jets are on the ice and probably wrapping up their morning skate. We'll go through the lines with you.
They are. In fact, Colby is in the room as we speak. I got a text from him. So he's there recording video for us.
So we may be able to
Colby Spence is in the building.
We may be able to get that up on the show over the next hour. And of course, coming up at the bottom of hour number 2, Tyrel Bauer is going to join us. It's his bobblehead day tomorrow. So we're going to talk to Tyrel about that, his season, and of course, him being mentioned yesterday by Kevin Cheveldayoff in the press conference. So plenty more to come. There's hundreds upon hundreds of you joining us this morning. Don't go anywhere. More of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show presented by Play Now. Smash that like button.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money. So much of your money. Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No. Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team then I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey Winnipeg, Joe Carter here. I look forward to joining you in Winnipeg on June 4th for the Rady JCC Ken Cronson Sports Dinner. See you in June. Don't be late.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, presented by our friends at Play Now. Bet with Play Now, the official betting partner of the Winnipeg Jets. Sign up and get up to $250 in bonus bets. Conditions apply. 18 plus. Enjoy responsibly. The Jets and the Canucks later on tonight. The Illegal Curve post-game show right around that 8:45 mark, give or take a couple minutes. So after the Jets and the Canucks, a big game between those two teams, particularly for the Jets, less so for the Canucks, of course. We'll talk about it all a little bit later on tonight. The Jets, trying to scratch and crawl their way up the standings. They are only 7 back. They were 9 back as of Thursday, if I recall correctly, entering Thursday, and then they're only 7 back. So, still a long ways to go, but they're keeping, they haven't completely waved the white flag just yet. Here's the lines from morning skates. The top 6 basically unchanged: Connor, Scheifele, and Iafallo. We've seen them together for the last little bit. We know that they can be an effective trio. Perfetti, Lowry, Velarde, same thing. Now it gets where it's a little bit interesting with some of the new guys getting in there. Gus Nyquist, who's still a member of the Winnipeg Jets, Jonathan Taves, they're going to be playing with the kid in Isak Rosean. Rosean is going to be on the right side of that line for the Jets. Number them 3, number them 4. That's up to you. I'm not going to make that distinction. And then Kepke, Barron, and Brad Lambert are a trio for the Winnipeg Jets as well. So that appears to be your 12 forwards for tonight's game. On the back end, Morrissey and DeMello, the familiar pair, reunited with Josh returning to the Jets lineup. Sandberg and Salamonson, you can call that the future, whatever you want to call it. That is your second pairing of defense for the Jets, and it appears as though Hayden Fleury and Jacob Bryson are going to be your third pairing. Ville Heinola was working in as well, but it seems likely that he's going to be the 7th defenseman for tonight's game between the Jets and the
Ginsburg was right and Mindy was wrong.
The only reason I was wrong is because I didn't realize that they didn't. I thought they papered Isaac Phillips and he was an option for the Jets. I was wrong in that case.
I'm bugging you.
I know you are. How's that French cappuccino there, fancy boy?
Well, apparently, we had a comment up there when we were talking to Hammer. Apparently, a vanilla French cappuccino is a lot of calories, 450 to 480.
You didn't think it was just pure sugar and calories?
Yeah, it's probably why I'm morbidly obese.
It's not helping your cause, that's for sure. Yeah. But I hope it tastes good at the very least.
Oh, it does taste good, and it gives you that nice jolt of caffeine in the morning. I like it. It's delicious. 7-Eleven. I want to try out. I don't know if you guys saw the Japanese egg salad sandwich. That's my next thing I want to try out there.
As my Uncle Benny used to say, "What a way to go."
I was going to say, although it is in keeping. That would be the perfect way for you to go. To be perfectly honest, it would be like he died doing what he loved.
Yeah, eating a poison apple is what would
I
happen.
could be like the lead singer of the Mamas and the Papas died choking on a sandwich.
Yeah, ham sandwich. That was
Yeah.
Mama Cass died
Mama Cass,
choking
yeah.
on a
There you
ham
go.
sandwich. So that also would be a good way for you to go as well. But hopefully not anytime soon. We can't fill your role that easily here on the program. So we'll keep you around for at least another couple months. Power play 1 for the Jets: Scheifele, Morrissey, Connor, Velarde, Perfetti. No changes there, no surprise there. Power play number 2. This is where you see some of the newbies getting their opportunity. We know that the second power play unit for the Jets maybe gets 30 seconds of power play time, but stranger things have happened. Isaac Rosen, Hayden Fleury, Gus Nyquist. Now that Nyquist has scored, he's a sniper back on the power play, going to be effective. Brad Lambert and Jonathan Taves is your second power play unit for the Winnipeg Jets. Talk about the new guys. What do you think about them being who they're lined up with? How do you think that those trios are going to work? Is that how you would have aligned the new players? How do you sort of evaluate these lines very early after the first morning skate that they've been available?
Well, that's the thing. It's hard to evaluate. They've literally have just played for the first time minutes ago, right? Like, so,
Right.
And I mean, like, talk about an opportunity for Rosen, right? He goes from basically buried in terms of not making the Sabres and playing for Rochester, right? And then he goes in a situation where he's going to be on power play 2, you said, Drew?
That's correct.
Right? So a great opportunity for him and a great opportunity for Brad Lambert, just in terms of power play guys, because, these are both, Lambert and Rosen are both guys that are considered more speedy, offensive-minded guys, right? Like, obviously, you want them to be rounding out their defensive games, but that's been the criticism. I think Dave would agree with that. Lambert, his numbers are his offensive numbers aren't where he'd like them to be, but I think Dave would agree that on that defensive side of the puck, that's what the coaches, you guys know, the coaching staff looks at that stuff more with younger players than we would think, right? Like, I think a head coach like Scott Arneal or one of his assistants, they're a lot happier if a guy goes out there and plays really solid defensively than if he scores a goal even. Like, I'm being serious, because they want to see that they're playing the way they need to stay in the NHL, right? So, yeah, like Nyquist and Taves, Drew, as his team, as his line mates, I mean, like, it kind of seems like a little bit like Rosen's just being kind of put on that line. Like, the top 6 is staying the same. So that's kind of, I guess, a little bit of a random line to me. Like, I don't know if that's going to be his spot, but I mean, the reality is, guys, I think they're trying to figure out, where he fits in this lineup at this point, right? Like, the fourth line, obviously, Barron and Koepke have been great, Dave, so there's no reason to break that up. So you're putting Lambert out there. He's got some speed. He can, get some pucks in the corners and, give you an honest effort on that fourth line. So that's a little bit more intriguing to me than Rosen, but not individually, because I'm going to be watching Rosen tonight versus Vancouver, but that line is definitely, I mean, you're putting a speedy guy in Rosen with 2 slow guys in Taves and Nyquist. So I'm not really sure what we're going to get out of that line tonight.
That was my thought as well, Dave, is that, Nyquist and Taves are certainly not the future for the Winnipeg Jets. They might not be the present after the next 20 games either. So what are you really going to, it's going to be, I don't love the idea of Rosen being saddled. Yes, they're both veteran guys. Yes, they know how to play at the NHL level, but it's hard to really, given the limited production that Taves and Nyquist have demonstrated this year. I just don't know that that's setting Rosen up for success very well.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I feel, although, I mean, look, Nyquist is on a heater right now with his, he scored in the last game, if I need to remind you, but forget about the preceding 39 games for him, but he did score in the last one. The only thing I can think of is because his defense has somewhat been questioned in the past, maybe putting him with guys who are considered more responsible is the rationale there. Personally, I mean, we talk about him as a top 6 guy. I mean, that's where you kind of want him to be. You want him to be a producer. I'm actually a little bit surprised they didn't go, maybe because they're inserting 2 new guys into the lineup, or 3 technically with Lambert, new old. But I would have thought that maybe they would have reunited Velarde with Connor and Scheifele, put Rosen with Lowry and Perfetti, and then at least you give him more of a chance to have a guy who's Perfetti's a good facilitator, Lowry can be the mucker, and then you've got, it's kind of the old ice hockey trio there. But so that's what I was kind of thinking they might do. But, again, like I said, they didn't. I like the Koepke, Barron, and Lambert line, because I think that's going to be a real fast line. They're going to be tenacious. The thing I'm a little bit surprised about is, and as I mentioned, I was talking about it with the guys yesterday, Matt Frost, while we were, kind of twiddling our thumbs, jibber jabbering, was the fact that Brad Lambert had moved to center for the Manitoba Moose in their previous 2 games against the Milwaukee Admirals last weekend in Milwaukee. So I thought maybe that's kind of like, if you guys remember, I mean, I talk about it a lot.
The Roslovic tell.
The Roslovic tell, when he had played center for the Manitoba Moose and was dominant as a center. And then all of a sudden, as he for 10 games suddenly was on the wing. I'm like, why is Pascal Vincent moving him to the wing? It doesn't make a lot of sense. And then it did, because when the Jets called him up shortly thereafter, he was on the wing, not as a center. So I thought maybe that was a little mini tell, because 2 games is not a huge indicator. Of course, no David Gustafsson. He's missed 4 games in a row. But so maybe it was just a necessity to get Lambert in that regard. But yeah, I mean, I know he prefers to play center. So I thought, here's a chance to kind of give him a little bit of a shot.
Sure.
So
and I think you could still see that, Dave, these last 20 games, right? Because
for sure,
Morgan Barron is obviously interchangeable as a center and a wing with Lambert, right? Like, so you have guys that can play both positions. And I think to Drew's point earlier, like with Nemesnikov and Niederreiter out of the lineup right now, this really is an opportunity for Brad Lambert that we didn't necessarily see, coming earlier in the season. It kind of looked like Lambert was going to play the majority of the season with the Moose, which he has. Mm-hmm. But like you said, Dave, he's been playing a little bit of center with the Moose. So you would think that Scott Arniel and the coaching staff are probably at some point going to want to see him, whether that's, 5 games, 10 games, whatever. To our point earlier, this is really about evaluation these last 20 games. Obviously, Absolutely. The Jets are going to try to win as many games as they can, try to get into the playoffs, but the coaching staff wants to evaluate Roseanne. They want to evaluate Lambert, and we expect, if the Jets fall out of the playoffs mathematically, you're going to see Zhilkin, you're going to see Parker Ford, guys like that, right?
Yeah, and again, like I said, I would just potentially, because remember, ideally, Adam Lowry is your third-line center. We need to get back to this idea that Adam Lowry is not a second line center on a Stanley Cup winning team. He's your third line center. So you do need, like, as he says, I mean, this is a chance. If a guy wants to play center, see what he can do as a center for 21 games. I mean, why not? What do you have to lose? What happens if Brad Lambert elevates his game to a point? I'm not saying he's going to, but you say, okay, well, we have a little more confidence that he could potentially be a guy who does that. Again, I'm not saying he's going to, but this is what we've been talking about for a long time, was that these 21 games that you have remaining, they are all about evaluation. Again, as he just said, I'm going to reiterate it. There is a chance that you can still make the playoffs, but the greater focus is not getting into the playoffs and then getting demolished by the Colorado Avalanche or the Dallas Stars or the Minnesota Wild. The fact of the matter is that the greater importance for your organization is to see what these guys can do. So, like I said, dipping his toes in, I mean, it's against the Vancouver Canucks, so I would actually suggest that if you're probably going to do it, probably should have started tonight, because it is against a team that is, first of all, played last night, as Drew said, but also a very bad, think about it, this team is 10 points back of the Calgary Flames, who are in 31st. So, I mean, their goal differential is minus 70. So this is not a, although I will say they're a better road team. I think they have 13 road wins.
13, 7, and 2 on the road. Yeah.
Yeah. Versus their 6 wins at home. So, I mean,
at least they're bizarre. Like, if you think about it, that they're the worst team in the league, but they have a winning record on the road.
No, they don't. They're still 13-17. Aren't they 13-17?
13-17 and 2. Yeah. They don't have a winning record on the road. They've just won more teams on the road.
Why did I think you said 13-7 and 2, and I went with it? I was like, that's not enough games.
I think I said, but anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is
that's actually a half decent road record, right? Like,
yeah. Well, the Jets' road record is 11-15 and 5. So
that's what I'm saying. Right?
They've actually got more. They've earned more points on the road than the Jets have.
Sure. Well, but again, when you only have 6 home wins, there's a reason why you have 45 points. Anyways, all I'm saying is that I would have said, okay, here's a chance to evaluate Brad Lambert as a center, which, I mean, look, the Moose played him as a center. He played as a center in Seattle. So, I mean, to me, again, like I said, this is an opportunity to see, hey, can this guy be our 2C? But again, like I said, the coaching staff could look at him and say, listen, we're going to evaluate him as a winger. But like I said, I don't mind him with that line, Ezzy, because I think Barron and Koepke and him with their speed will be able to create opportunities. So maybe they start to produce, and maybe then you've got something there. But like I said, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And the one thing I'll say about Jacob Bryson, Drew, we talk about him being a 7th. He's also got, I think he has 2 or 3 goals for the Sabres this year.
He does. He's got some offense. Again, another guy who's got a little bit of offense. Yeah, he's a puck-moving defenseman.
He's Ville Heinola. He's Ville Heinola. But my point is that
he's actually Jacob Bryson, Dave.
There you go. Thank you, Ez. But the fact is, he actually has goals under his belt this year, is what I'm saying, which puts him ahead of Hayden Fleury, puts him ahead of Ville Heinola, puts him ahead of
290. He's played 290 NHL games in his career. So he's a veteran depth, undersized, third pairing defenseman. Hayden Fleury light, if you will, if you want to consider it that way. But
although Hayden Fleury still doesn't have a goal in his Jets in a Jets jersey, just saying.
Is that really? Well, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you think of his play going back to the Manitoba Miracle and how important he was in that one game, and it's just like it feels as though he would have scored a goal at some point in time.
Well, it's just surprising also because he's more of an offensive defenseman, right? But yeah,
well, he's got the power play 2 duties. He's got the point on the second power play unit moving forward, so maybe he'll get off the schneid and score a goal for the Winnipeg Jets. Who knows if it's going to be tonight or anytime soon. But back to both of your points. I mean, I think it goes to show you that the problems with the Winnipeg Jets and their forward group still is that you don't, and I saw Doug, I think, and maybe somebody else mentioned it in the chat that Nyquist remaining in the lineup just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I know that there's injuries and I know that there's, roster issues and things of that nature. But, at this point in time, there's nothing left to get out of Gus Nyquist. He got his goal. You weren't able to trade him at the deadline. Okay, he can be in the press box moving forward. There's no more evaluation. There's no more benefit for Gus Nyquist holding down a regular spot on your lineup moving forward. Especially, I mean, I would like to have seen Lambert with Rosen and Barron. I thought that would have, if that means Lambert goes up the middle, then great. We've seen Barron on the wing, and I like Barron probably more up the middle than I do on the wing.
Andrew, you still might see that. That's the thing, right? I think this is these, like, again, I think these next, what are there, 21 games left, guys? 20 games or 21 games? I think that's what you want to be doing. You want to be trying different things. So I think, I'm with you, Drew. I'd love to see Lambert, Roseanne, and Barron as well. And I think that's why these lines today that we've just seen in Game Day Skate, which are most likely going to be the lines tonight versus Vancouver, I think, in the bottom 6, you're going to see a lot of different combinations. And to your point about Gus Nyquist, yeah, I certainly wouldn't be. I don't know, like, how soon he's going to be a healthy scratch on this homestand, but I certainly wouldn't be surprised if in these last 21 games that you see Nyquist as a healthy scratch. And then, like we said, Danny Zhilkin's a guy that you think might get some games, right? I'd be curious if a guy like Colby Barlow, Dave. I've talked to you about Barlow before, or Yager, right? Yager scored a really nice. Was that yesterday? Yager scored the really nice goal against Toronto, or was it the game before that? I forget.
His previous goal was his goal against Milwaukee was the nicer one.
Milwaukee,
yeah. Yesterday he scored a bit of a floater, but it was a power play goal, and the Moose do not often score power play goals, so that was the more significant, and it was his second goal in the last 3 games. I mean, that was my question to Kevin Cheveldayoff yesterday in the media availability. Was just this idea, like, does it bother you to only have 5 recalls? Because really it's going to limit, especially with the injuries. That's the biggest problem, right? It's not
There's emergency recalls you can use. So
there's of course,
an asterisk next to that as well.
Of course there is. But I'm just saying that it's more a function of, but you have to have injuries, Drew, right? That's you can't just make things up and say, okay, sure, like, yeah, no.
Fingernail. I have a hangnail. It hurts.
You've got a flu today, so you're out of the lineup. So I'm just saying that it's just, that's why you have to be a little judicious in terms of your usage of these recalls. So we know that the Jets have already used, look, we thought that's kind of why I think they got Bryson, right? Is that they want one, because you were moving out defensemen, but also this way you don't need to use a recall on Isaac Phillips or someone else right now. You can allow yourself to have in your sort of chamber here 3 recalls before the end of the regular season. So because unless I'm wrong, I don't think the Jets have an extra forward right now. I think the Jets the Jets are playing at 12 forwards. Now, again, it's not a big deal because the Moose are in town. And even when the Moose go out of town, they're going out west I know they're going to Abbotsford. I don't know if they're going to Calgary and Abbotsford. I can't remember. But the fact is, we can ask Tyrel Bauer when he joins us in 10 minutes. But
Tyrel, where's your next game after Sunday?
No, I know they're going to Abbotsford. I just don't know if they're also going to Calgary. They usually go when they do.
Between Ezzy's ridiculous bar mitzvah question from last week's post game show and where are you playing next game? I'm not sure Tyrel's going to be getting the hard hitting questions on this interview.
Yeah. Well, anyway,
I thought this was a bobblehead exclusive interview.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think what it comes down to, as I fact check myself, I am incorrect. In fact, correct. It is Abbotsford, then Calgary. So there you go. I knew what I was talking about. But yeah, I just think that you're going to get a chance to, we'll see, evaluate some of these guys. And like I said, the one I would say after these 2 that are up with Salamonson and Lambert would definitely be Zhilkin. I think that Chibrikov is just again, he's recovering from what happened to him last year. I mean, I was talking to some folks yesterday or the day before, and they just said, like, with what he went through, it's going to take some time. And I know that we live in a world where it's like, well, wait a second, he's playing and everything like that. But because of the injury he went under that he had to deal with and recover from, it takes a long time for him to kind of get back to kind of where he needed to be. So with me, Chibrikov, I'm looking at him having a good summer and really evaluating him next year. I'm not really worried about what he was doing this year because of the length of recovery time for what he underwent. But I think Zhilkin's definitely a guy you're going to want to evaluate. Again, maybe Jagger, Barlow, probably not this year, but we'll see what happens. And again, the man of the hour, the man who's going to be here in 10 minutes, boys, as mentioned by Kevin Cheveldayoff, may get his first NHL game.
Well, let's talk about, of course, Tyrel Bauer is going to join us in a couple minutes. So before we go to break, so that we make sure we bring Tyrel in on time, couple super chats to read. Thanks to Vicious 934.
I was wondering why you kept taking that comment off. I was putting it up.
Because I was going to read it and make a note about it and make it a big deal because I'm hosting and you're drinking your 500 calorie cappuccino. Vicious 934 says, great work by Chevy. Great trade. Picking up 2 NHL ready prospects. Give Lambert and Rosen 20 games. Thank you to Vicious 934 for that one. And then, of course, Tico Napoli. It's his big day, given that Tyrel is going to be on the show. And should I read it as if I'm screaming, considering it's all in all caps, or should I just read it normally? Happy bobblehead day, Ty. Remember, keep the chin tucked in, let him chuck, but more importantly, keep up that shutdown D game. It's your spot next on the Jets. I don't doubt you. Thank you to Tico Napoli.
Make sure you highlight that comment so you can read it to Tyrel Bauer, and
I have it. All the super chats immediately get started in our private comment page, Dave.
And also, by the way, I'm gonna make sure that if Tico Napoli's not going to the game, I will get him a Tyrel Bauer bobblehead at some point.
Wow.
So Tico Napoli, we got your back here on the show.
I want a bobblehead too, Dave.
Can you get me one too?
No. Just Tico Napoli.
Just Tico Napoli. That's fine. You know where your bread's buttered, and it's with Tico Napoli. When we come back, Tyrel Bauer joins us here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Manouk, Ezra Ginsburg. Fun Saturday morning with more to come.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money. So much of your money. Now you might have questions like,
do our profits benefit your community?
No. Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Center. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Center.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door. And you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumor's incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey Winnipeg, Joe Carter here. I look forward to joining you in Winnipeg on June 4th for the Rady JCC Ken Cronson Sports Dinner. See you in June. Don't be late.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
Welcome back to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. Tyrel Bauer set to join us in a few minutes' time. We'll, of course, have more from downtown Winnipeg on the Jets and the Canucks a little bit later on in tonight's game. And then the Illegal Curve post-game show will be after the game, right around that 8:45 mark. Join the three of us back here as we talk about everything that goes on as the Jets and the Canucks do battle. Opportunity for the Winnipeg Jets to extend the point streak to 6 consecutive games, depending on the results tonight. Of course, like I said, facing a Canucks team on the second half of a back-to-back, a Canucks team that I think shocked the world in going to Chicago last night and defeating the Blackhawks. They arrived late in Winnipeg last night. The Jets will, of course, need to be on their best if they want to continue the good vibes that they've developed since the end of the Olympic break. The Moose won last night, though, Dave. So before we bring in Tyrel Bauer to talk about that, of course, give us a little bit of a recap about what happened last night at the Moose game.
The Moose won.
Put on your antlers. It's time for the Minuk Moose Minute on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Were you about to be smart and say the Moose won, and then just that would be the extent of your insight?
That's exactly what I was going to do.
Who's denying me the Moose bumper there?
Not me, as my hands were down. I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was actually having a seizure there for a moment.
I pressed the button, then you press the button, then you press the button, and then everything else, and back and forth we go as the smooth operation here of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show continues unabated.
Well, anyway, so before Ty gets in here, because he's going to be in here, the Moose rolled to a 3-2 win over the Toronto Marlies last night, and so Isaac Phillips, straight out of the grocery store. That was a funny story that Kevin Cheveldayoff told yesterday, where Isaac Phillips was called at 4 o'clock, or maybe Scott O'Neill said it, but 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He was busy shopping, had a couple steaks in his hand, and then got told by the GM he was playing in the game that night. So had to run out of the store. I don't know if he bought the steaks, and then went and played in the Jets game against the Lightning, played for the Moose last night, scored a goal to open the scoring. And then Brady Jagger, he scored on the power play, tied it 2-2. And then Ashton Sautner, as he flin-flon, Flin-Flon's own Ashton Sautner, he scored early in the third period to make it 3-2. And the Moose held on and beat the Marlies to take sole possession of third spot in the Central.
Well, if he's anything like a real Winnipegger, he probably just stole the steaks and ran away accordingly. But hopefully not, that we don't condone that kind of activity. But I think that Mr. Bauer is ready to join us, so we'll bring him in. Tyrel Bauer gives the double thumbs up. There he is. Tyrel, I think you're on mute, so I'll let you deal with that, or tell Fink to help you out with that. There we go. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
Good morning. Yeah, great to be here. I'm not tech savvy myself, so thanks for giving me the heads up that I was on mute there.
It's the least we're not tech savvy either, but it's amazing that we can broadcast as often as we do. But nonetheless, here you are, the day before bobblehead day for yourself. Is there extra nerves going on when it's your own bobblehead? Sort of. We'll talk about your season. We'll talk about Kevin Cheveldayoff mentioning you yesterday in the press conference. But tomorrow is Tyrel Bauer bobblehead day. What does that mean to you, that you've sort of become such a fixture in the community and a fixture with the Manitoba Moose organization and the Jets organization, that they honor you with the bobblehead?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head there, Drew. It is pretty cool. First of all, little disclaimer right here.
Oh, nice.
I don't know if I was supposed to show that or not. I might be getting, but yeah, no, it's fantastic. I mean, I love playing here. I love the city. I love the fans. it's been a long ride. This is my fourth year, I think 6 with the organization since I was drafted. So it's people are joking, that's how knowing you've made it. I wouldn't say any more nerves, maybe a couple more laughs, but no, I'm super grateful for it, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow night.
Ty, you just mentioned 4 years with the Moose organization. You recently hit 200 games, and it's crazy. I think for us, because you're still only 23 years old compared to us old farts. You're very young, but for yourself, like, what does that mean to you to hit 200 games in the AHL so far? You're a grizzled veteran at this point.
Yeah. Very grateful. You play hockey and you want to play at the highest level. Obviously, you come out of junior, you don't really know what to expect, and you kind of just got to figure it out and learn along the way and roll with some of the punches and maybe some injuries and a lot of new experiences flying at you at once. So to be able to stay here and be here in this organization and play 200 games, it's a special feeling, and it's a cliche, but it takes an army. So I've been fortunate enough to have some great teammates here and a great support system, and been able to get into the community and build some of those relationships that I hold dear. So here's to 200 more, hopefully.
Well, Ty, one of the things that you've done, and doesn't get a lot of mention, is that role that you play in the community. After the games, you meet with young fans. How did you get involved in that? And it's, again, I think it's a testament to who you are as a person, but because of the lack of fanfare, it's not something that you're seeking publicity for, but again, we see it in the media, and it's just, how did you get involved in that, and what does that do for you as a person to be able to give back in that way and kind of touch lives almost after, I think, every single game?
Yeah, for sure. That what you're referring to there is the foster family program we run. So we give tickets to a foster family, and they get a meet and greet. They get to come to the game. They get a meet and greet after the game, and a little goodie bag there. Jimmy Oligny actually started that, or was the forefront of that a few years ago. And, when he left, I was interested in it. I would see him doing it, was kind of asking around. And then when he left, I asked him if I could take it over and if we could keep it going. He was a great man. He said, absolutely. So it is special when you get to go out there. I think we're in a unique position as professional hockey players to get to give back. I remember being a kid, and, it might have just been junior B in my hometown, but I remember how much I looked up to those guys and how much I wanted to be them, and would be begging for a stick and, all the whole 9 yards. So we're in a spot where we're fortunate enough to be able to exercise that and try to be good role models. And, if you can put a smile on somebody's face, I think that's a pretty good day in itself.
Tyrel Bauer is our guest here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show ahead of Tyrel Bauer bobblehead day tomorrow as the Moose and the Marlies do battle. Yesterday, though, Tyrel, after the NHL trade deadline came and went, the general manager of the Winnipeg Jets, Kevin Cheveldayoff, was addressing the media, and he said the following, quote, "One player that I do hope we can find an opportunity down the line is a guy that plays his heart and soul out for us all the time, Tyrel Bauer. You'd love to be able to get that guy an opportunity because he plays so hard for the Manitoba Moose." That's what Chevy said yesterday. What do you think when you hear that? Did you have any inkling that was going to be coming down the road, or you're sitting back and you're watching, or you're doing your day-to-day activities, and all of a sudden you get acknowledged publicly by the general manager of the NHL club?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. To be perfectly honest with you, trade deadline was yesterday, obviously, so I'm not too caught up on everything that was going on. We played yesterday, so I was planning on doing all that today, catching up today. But yeah, no, that's cool to hear. Like I said earlier, it's your dream to play in the National Hockey League. That's kind of what you set foot on the ice each and every day to do, to grind for. And it's a unique challenge to just keep stacking days together, and if they're good days or bad days, regardless, you just kind of got to keep pushing forward. So I'm going to defer again to my teammates. I got a great group of guys, and I want to win out here on the ice every night with the Manitoba Moose. And if I'm fortunate enough to be put in that spot and breathe that rare air, I'll be very grateful.
And Ty, we got a pretty big bump from you coming on the show today. Last night, obviously, not just with the Moose winning, but your D partner Ashton Sautner, who Dave mentioned, from Flin Flon, Manitoba, my dad's hometown in northern Manitoba. So shout out to Flin Flon. But he also, after the game, passed you the helmet. So how cool was that, just for you guys as a D pair, who obviously played a key role in yesterday's win?
Yeah. So that's his. He's a great man. We played together here for 4 years, actually. I think, with the exception of a couple guys, we might be the longest tenured Moose players, or up there at least. And he's been by my side the whole way. I mean, coming in as a rookie, he was a veteran, an older player, and he kind of took me under his wing. And he lives currently, in the same hometown as me in Cochrane, Alberta. So we even got to spend some time in the summer together, and we train together. So my whole professional ride, you want to talk about 200 games, he's been there, and he's helped out a lot in that process. So now we've been playing together consistently. We're taking a lot of pride in our end and trying to shut down, other teams' lines. So, goals might be few and far between the two of us. But when they happen, we're extremely excited for each other, and, props to him. And, for him to pass me that helmet too, it's always special coming from a guy like that.
How much incentive does a comment from Kevin Cheveldayoff kind of provide for the remainder of the year? I mean, I know you're already incentivized, as you said, you want to win with this team, and this is a group that has significant playoff aspirations. But individually, from your perspective, how significant does it kind of give you a little shot in the arm while you're playing, a season where seasons can drag on a little bit? Is that something that can help you kind of elevate your game a little bit?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think it can. For first and foremost on my mind, like you said, is I want to win with this team. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of good pieces, and we're I know it's later in the year, but we're learning what it takes to be a successful hockey club each and every night, and I think we're getting close to that point. So we want to go out on the ice, and obviously, in order to help your team win, you have to perform individually as well. That's the nature of team sports. But I am a big believer in team success leads to individual success as well. So we go out there and win some hockey games, and the guys maybe go on a start streaking here a little bit, stringing together some wins. I think it helps everybody, and a deep playoff push in its own right does that as well. So first and foremost, want to go out and win hockey games and do whatever I can to help my team win hockey games. And if by chance that team changes for a little bit at some point, then my mindset is still the same. Just going to go out there and try to help, win hockey games.
Tyrel Bauer, our guest here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show Saturday morning. The Moose and the Marlies tomorrow. They'll do battle, the rematch after last night's victory for the Moose. Right now in the thick of a playoff chase, in a good position, the Manitoba Moose are, you and your teammates, Tyrel. So, with another 22 games to go on the season, and obviously the goal is the Calder Cup playoffs and everything else. What are you sort of focused on, in terms of fine-tuning at this point? Are you just trying to sort of sand out whatever rough edges still might exist within the team game to get into that push for the Calder Cup? I mean, I got to say that, the Grand Rapids Griffins, the team who's already clinched a playoff spot, you guys have played them very hard this year. In fact, you've beaten them, which is something that not very many AHL teams can say. So what do you take from being able to go toe-to-toe with the best of the AHL and succeeding against them?
Yeah. That means a lot to our group. I look back to a stretch, I'm losing track of days. Was it maybe January, or might have been January, where we played, Laval and Grand Rapids in tight succession there. And we battled and we did well, and we got a lot of points out of those games. And we also learned a lot as a group. We learned that we could play with these, big bad hockey teams that, shouldn't lose games. And in learning that, we kind of know the level that we have to be up to, that we have to get up for in those kind of games. So when you ask what we need to rough out, I think we just got to get to that level every time. We got to take the same amount of pride in our game, no matter who we're playing. And it's an interesting balance. It can be at times, but I think that's something that's coming along, and learning how to win those tight checking hockey games, where it's kind of the first mistake rather than the next goal that wins or loses a hockey game kind of thing.
Ty, we wanted to ask you about all the movement up and down between the Moose and the Jets, and how it's affected yourself and some of the other defensemen. Obviously, Elias Salamonson is one of those guys. We've seen Isaac Phillips up with the Jets. Now Ville Heinola up with the Jets. Cale Clegg was up with the Jets, right? I think you know where I'm going with this. There's been a lot of guys up and down, but what's that like for you? I mean, we cover the team, but what's it like as a pro hockey player? Like, is that just a function of the game, the fact that guys get called up throughout the season? Obviously, there's been a lot of injuries on the back end with Pionk and prior to that, Hayden Fleury, Colin Miller. There's been some injuries with the Jets D group, but what's that like for you guys to deal with as a group of defensemen? And I guess as part of that answer, it's also probably really nice for you guys to see your teammates get the call up and be flourishing, whether that's a guy like Salamonson or Heinola or Phillips.
Absolutely. You hit it on the head. First and foremost, nothing but happy for those guys. I mean, you battle it out, you play beside them each and every night. Like I said, it's the goal for everybody. Everybody wants to get there. When you get to see a teammate, a guy that a guy that you've seen kind of the behind the scenes work, and maybe some of the challenges that they had to overcome, and you get to see them go up. It's a special feeling that you kind of have some pride in, saying like, heck yeah, you did that. We're happy for you. So that's always on the forefront of your mind, as in terms of injuries and call ups and all that affecting the roster. I mean, that's part of the game. I mean, organizations, they try to prepare for that as best they can as well. Obviously, with all those call ups and maybe my suspension at the time, we were
Ty, we weren't going to mention that. We were going to keep that off of the show today. We didn't see anything. We didn't see anything. What suspension?
I appreciate that. You're right. What suspension didn't happen. Yeah, so we were definitely a little short staffed, but I mean, it shows our depth and our character, I think, as not only as a hockey team, but as a back end unit. We were able to come out and beat Grand Rapids in their home barn, during those circumstances. So we got a lot of great guys, a lot of guys that play their hearts out every night. And I think it shows. So we're always ready for it. Some guys get some more opportunity, including myself, and everybody wants to make the most of that to help their team win.
Ty, it's not all about fighting, but when you do fight, they tend to be, very notable. And it seems like it blows up our social media. And I know that, again, like I said, you're there to protect your teammates. You don't let things happen that should be happening. But the one thing I always find amazing is how you guys can just beat the crap out of each other, and then afterwards just be like, all right, good fight. Like you and Cal Marino, you guys have just these, I think you guys have fought 5 times in the last 3 years. And yet after everyone, it's kind of like smack each other on the back. Good job. But how quickly does it kind of drain out of you that you're just like, all right, we just went toe to toe. We just had a massive melee and now we're good.
Yeah. It's a unique spot. It's a unique spot. A lot of, it sounds odd, but you're fighting with the guy, but you also don't want to hurt him. So, it's, we both know what it takes to be able to stand in there and how it feels before, during, and after, a big scrap. And when you're going up against the toughest guys in the league, can be a daunting task at times. Obviously, as you mentioned, you're always doing it, for a reason. Sometimes it can be hard to see on the outside, but it's for a love of the guys in the locker room and the crest on the front of the jersey and everything that means, from community to fans. Like you said, there's usually a reason behind it more than just wanting to hit somebody in the face. In terms of the specific case of Kyle, we are very familiar. It's been a lot of boats between me and him, and a couple good ones. He's a very respectful man, so there's a good amount of respect there. So when we're done hitting each other, we give each other props and say, well done. It's not easy to do.
Last one for you, Ty. 200 games into your AHL career. As you sort of look back and you sort of evaluate the journey, what do you think has changed the most about yourself as a person on the ice, and sort of how you approach it as a professional over the course of those 200 games?
Yeah, the first thing, I had a straighter nose, I think, when I first came in the league. But we'll take care of that one when it's all said and done, I guess.
Character is what that does now.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. It's a good question. I mean, there's so much. You come out of junior. It's a steep learning curve. You get thrown into it right away. You're not playing with guys that are 4 years older than you anymore. You're playing with guys that are 10, 12 years older than you, with a family that they're providing for. So you kind of see the priorities and what it takes to be a pro and stand in there every day. I mean, the schedule can be daunting at times, just between travel and playing, back-to-backs, 4 and 6s, different cities. When I look back at me, I just see a lot of growth as a person, and maturity, a lot of learning stuff that either could fly in junior that can't here, or vice versa. You see what you went through and some of the lessons you had to learn, whether it be the hard way or by watching. You don't have to live through everything to learn it. But yeah, there's kind of a special feeling there, knowing what you've been through and kind of what more you can get through. You learn about yourself and how you can manage and what you have to do, what it takes. And it's a constant process of tinkering with that method. And that's the fun part. I call it, the puzzle of life. Sometimes you lose a few pieces and you got to go looking and get them back. But yeah, a lot of gratitude for sure.
Ty, just one last question for you. I know you got to go here. I saw something and I had to connect it to you to ask you a funny question here. We're obviously 3 Jewish guys, 3 washed up Jewish guys, but I don't know if you saw your buddy Matt Rempe was at a bar mitzvah in New York. Did you see that by any chance? I'm not sure.
I did not.
If you saw that. So I was like, we're going to have Ty on. So I got to ask him a funny question. And the question is, if there was a young Jewish boy here in Winnipeg invited you to a bar mitzvah, is that something that maybe you would consider doing as part of your extracurricular duties with the Moose?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I've never attended one before.
Yeah, there's an open bar. Yeah,
yeah, I've never attended one before, but I would that would want a hand or a fan or anything of that nature. So
Dave can be your +1.
There you go. As long as there's a familiar face.
Tyrel Bauer, the bobblehead day tomorrow. Continued success in your journey with the Manitoba Moose. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all you do for the community of Winnipeg. Your heartfelt words at the beginning of the interview were appreciated by everybody in our audience, and all the best to you moving forward, and we'll catch up again real soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Our
Always
pleasure. Take care. Yeah.
Thanks,
Ty. Take
Bye-bye.
care. There he goes. Tyrel Bauer. Great kid. Great interview. Thanks to him. Thanks to the Manitoba Moose, our buddy Daniel Fink, for coordinating that interview. And again, of course, if you want to go to Tyrel Bauer bobblehead day,
I actually have 2 tickets.
There you go. Dave M's got 2 tickets. I was also going to send people to moosehockey.com so they can buy their tickets themselves. But if you're looking to go to the game tomorrow, get in touch with Dave via social media, and he'll hook you up as only Dave M can in the Illegal Curve section tomorrow at the Moose game. When we come back, more on the Jets, more on the Moose, more of whatever nonsense we come up with. It's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show live Saturday morning here on the Illegal Curve Hockey Show.
I want to thank you for not betting with Play Now and choosing our illegal gambling site instead.
Because we couldn't afford things like this without your money. So much of your money. Now you might have questions like,
Do our profits benefit your community?
No. Or bet with Play Now, Manitoba's local legal and secure gambling site.
Dining, entertainment, parking, and convenience, all in one spot. City Place is located in the heart of downtown Winnipeg, attached to the Canada Life Centre. Whether you're working, living, or out for a night in the downtown, make City Place your go-to destination before or after the fun finds you. Lunchtime, game time, anytime. Visit City Place at 333 St. Mary Avenue, next to Canada Life Centre.
Boys, I've made an important life decision, and I need your support.
Oh, boy.
I've decided to get a grill.
You mean a barbecue grill for cooking? Like, that's not an important life decision, Ezzy.
No. A grill for my teeth.
A grill for your teeth? Do I even want to know why you're doing this?
It's simple, really. Every time I go to Holt Dental, I get treated so very well by Dr. John and his team that I need to keep finding additional reasons to go back. I rely on Holt Dental for all of my dental needs, and they do it all, from regular cleanings to cosmetic dentistry. Plus, they have free parking at their front door, and you know how much I love my convenient parking.
For all your dental needs, Illegal Curve recommends Holt Dental, conveniently located on Taylor Avenue near Grant Park Mall. For more information, visit them online at holtdental.ca.
For over 40 years, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club has been Winnipeg's home for stand-up comedy. Renowned in the comedy world as a must-play venue, Rumors has recently been named Canada's top comedy club and a top 5 comedy club in North America. From birthday parties to date nights to fundraisers, wedding socials, and everything in between, Rumors is your destination for the best live entertainment Winnipeg has to offer. For information on upcoming shows, Rumors' incredible promotions, and to purchase show tickets, visit rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey Winnipeg, Joe Carter here. I look forward to joining you in Winnipeg on June 4th for the Rady JCC Ken Cronson Sports Dinner. See you in June. Don't be late.
At Boston Pizza, a fast lunch doesn't have to mean fast food. Now you can get a $15 lunch served in just 20 minutes, including your choice of a main, side, and drink. That's right, lunch for $15 at your local Boston Pizza.
I fear that I've made a terrible mistake. I mentioned in helping Ty out and Ezzy's question about the bar mitzvah, I mentioned open bar, and all of a sudden the chat, everybody in the chat is trying to figure out how to convert to Judaism so they can get into these open bars that I'm talking about at the bar mitzvahs. We've made a terrible mistake. I apologize to everybody who's having a bar mitzvah in the near, or a bat mitzvah in the near and short term. As a result, you're gonna have a lot more audience members apparently from the Illegal Curve chat room, but that's okay, folks. We love you all.
All of a sudden, I just got a huge craving for party sandwiches, boys.
I was at a function earlier this weekend. I did have a couple party sandwiches, and they were delicious.
Drew,
so,
tuna, egg. Drew's in there.
Yeah, I'm a tuna and egg guy. I'm not a salmon guy. Dave strikes me as a salmon guy, though.
I mean, I like salmon, but no, I hate party sandwiches. I don't eat mayo.
Don't eat. Okay, fair enough.
Disgusting.
That's gonna go.
Hold on. Dave is picky about something that he eats. What?
Shocking.
Let's go back to the lasagna conversation from a number of weeks ago, where Dave M doesn't eat lasagna, and I guess that was a couple months ago.
I think Dave said he's never had lasagna.
I have not.
That is correct. He's never said he's had lasagna.
It's funny because lasagna was like a staple, like my dad, like John Ginsburg. That was a staple growing up. Like he would make us lasagna. Like we'd probably have that like once a week. He made a good lasagna.
I made a lovely gnocchi last night. I made gnocchi with a bolognese sauce. That was the family dinner over here.
Please stop.
How about
Well, Tom, by the way,
you just want to say gnocchi. I think that's what Drew wants to say. He just wants. He didn't actually make anything. He just likes to say gnocchi.
Well, it's not gnocchi. It's gnocchi. You
I
gotta get
said
sort
it.
of like
Gnocchi.
A gnocchi. A gnocchi. Anyways, I will give Thomas Jagger the quote, the line of the day so far. Use IC shortcut for 20% off your next circumcision. Nicely done.
That's
There you
hilarious.
go. Yeah, that is a funny line. In any event, no surprise, Josh Morrissey has been confirmed as returning to the Jets lineup tonight. This is one that the Jets, I mean, look, we know where they are in the standings. They had that tremendously impressive victory against the Tampa Bay Lightning on Thursday night. You can't undo the positives from that one by having a poor performance tonight. You're playing against a Vancouver Canucks team on the second half of a back-to-back. You have to get 2 points. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It needs to be 2 points. It needs to be 2 points in regulation, I would add, because right now, again, you're a far ways away from the Seattle Kraken in the standings, but the Kraken have 2 more regulation time victories than you do. So the Kraken right now have the tiebreaker to boot. This needs to be a clean 2 points in the first 60 minutes of the contest for the Winnipeg Jets tonight against the Canucks.
Absolutely, Drew. And we talked about it before the homestand started. We said 6-2 is probably not going to cut it if you actually are going to make a run, because we've talked about what the Jets, how many games the Jets are going to have to win, right? I think the playoff line now is set at around like 91 or 92 points. So that means that the Jets are going to have to win 70 to 75% of their games, right? So obviously, 6-2 would be above 75%. But what we're talking about is actually putting a dent in the deficit that currently exists between them and Seattle, who's in the second wildcard spot, right? So not only do you have to beat Vancouver, but you have to go either 7-1 or 8-0 on this homestand. And I realize a lot of people think that, that's unrealistic and ridiculous, and you're entitled to that opinion. The good thing for the Jets is, they have some teams coming up that aren't very good, right? Anaheim is coming up on Tuesday. The Jets have those 2 days off before Tuesday's games against Anaheim. But then you've got New York, that's a, collect $200 pass go. Colorado, obviously, next Saturday afternoon. That's the hard one. But then you've got St. Louis and Nashville. So the way I look at it, I mean, there's 2 of these 6 games are tough ones, but 4 of the 6 games are completely winnable. So I don't think.
And one of the tough ones, by the way, Tampa Bay was a tough one, and the Jets handled them effectively.
Exactly. So I still think it's a long shot. I'd be naive, or it would be absurd for me to say, the Jets have turned the corner and they're going to, go on a 16-5 run and make the playoffs. But they can control their own destiny. That's all they can do, right? Concentrating on winning games, right, Dave? Yeah. And starting with tonight against Vancouver, like Drew said, even though the Canucks won its second game of a back-to-back, it's a horrible lineup. I mean, who's going to be surprised if Evander Kane scores a goal tonight? I certainly won't be. I guess there's no interest in Evander Kane, eh, boys? I thought he was going to be moved.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that none of those guys got picked up, right? Like there were a lot of people. I mean, it was not a very active deadline. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line. I can't imagine having to make video or TV for 10 hours, whatever they were on, because like I said,
Oh, by the way, the Rolodex, did you watch that video? Did you watch
I was at the arena. I didn't see anything.
It was actually funny. So, they always like to put out those, Duffy or likes to sort of, along with the insiders, they put out a video, a movie of whatever to sort of kick off the start of the Trade Center coverage.
Yeah.
The Rolodex, the one that they did yesterday, was pretty funny. I actually laughed at it a couple times, where Bob McKenzie, who does a cameo, comes in and he says, like, he calls him like CJ, he calls him Pierre, and he looks at Dreger and he goes Devin as opposed to Aaron. It was pretty funny.
Okay, well,
I haven't seen it yet, but
it's one of those things. One of those things you probably had to be to watch, because I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I will say, if you want to watch this though, Drew.
Jacob Bryson. Isak Rosén.
The Jets asked them how to pronounce Isak Rosén.
Did they send that out, Dave?
They posted
on Twitter. They just
on
posted
their
it on
Instagram.
Twitter.
So there you go. Folks have some curiosity.
I was going to say, I'll be honest, I kind of really like saying his name, Isak Rosén. It's fun.
There's some joy in doing that way. But anyways,
I wonder if Isak Rosén eats gnocchi. That would be my question for the rest of the day.
That's a good question, Drew. That's a very good question. The only thing I was going to add is the tickets are already spoken for. I haven't even received the tickets yet. Someone just one of our longtime readers, viewers offered me the tickets and said, they can't go to the game. Can you pass them along? We already put them out there. And
Dave, T. Conapoli is actually at your front door right now, banging the door. Like,
no, it is. I don't know if I should reveal, but it is Bailey, the intern, who actually slid into the DMs quickly to get those tickets. So Bailey, the intern, will be getting the hookup for those tickets as soon as I get them. And then the last thing I'll say, boys, because of course, we got to end the segment with a little. I mean, I will say this is why I love the chat, because the chat, ever since Drew mentioned my
show the one, this is a good one.
No, I'm just talking about all they're doing is talking about how my diet and what I eat, my lack of food and stuff like that. So it is. What were you going to say, Drew? Sorry,
I was going to put up this minutia from 9:43 a.m. Mark Scheifele and Isak Rosien are exactly 10 years apart. Scheifele turns 33 and Rosien turns 23 next Sunday, March 15th. That would be minutia as well. But
I did.
Bryson Reimer is beating you to it.
No, I did see the comment. Good that you gave Bryson credit. I will say it's kind of crazy that Mark Scheifele is 33. Like that one kind of snuck up on us. I was like, wait, Mark Scheifele's 33 years old. When that happened, he feels like he's still in his mid 20s. Speaking of guys who are not even in their mid 20s, they're still in their teenage years. Owen Martin from Oakbank had another goal. His heater continues. He's gone a couple games without scoring, but he scored last night for Spokane. I believe his 22nd goal of the season. He is, I think he's gotten 8 goals in his last 10 games. So he's rolling along and producing for Spokane. And of course, Kevin He, the 2024 fourth rounder. Apparently the Jets, according to Drew Mindell, cannot draft in late rounds, but 2024 fourth rounder Kevin He added 2 primary assists for Flint. He is named first star. He continues to produce.
Okay, there you go. Dave M giving an update on that. We'll give you all a little bit of an update later on tonight on the Illegal Curve post-game show.
Drew, last thing, sorry, but Colby was down at at Canada Life Center, so we do have videos with Roseanne and Jacob Bryson and Scott Arneal, which will be in the pregame report.
There you go. Check it out online. Check it out on the YouTube channel. Be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and join us later on tonight after the Jets and the Canucks for another edition of the Illegal Curve post-game show. Big thanks to all of our sponsors for their support. That's, of course, our friends at Play Now. They're the title sponsor. The Rady JCC Sports Dinner upcoming in June with Joe Carter and Cito Gaston. Tickets at radyjcc.com. Boston Pizza, April 14th. Jets, Mammoth, last regular season away game, Illegal Curve watch party. Put it in your calendars, April 14th. Wheatland Hockey, City Place, Holt Dental, and of course our friends at Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. Big thanks to everybody for joining us. Go ahead, Dave. You can talk about the Penticton V's really quickly. I saw
Penticton V's, 40 wins. Way to go, Penticton V's. Mr. Meow, we must. Was insistent on, or not insistent, but requesting Ezzy to get in a mention of the Penticton V's 40 wins in their inaugural season. So even though Ezzy's really connected to minor hockey more than I am, so I should let Ezzy make that pronouncement.
That's junior hockey, brah.
Well, I know it's junior hockey, but I'm saying it's not pro hockey.
Yeah, no, good point. Yeah, no, good for the Penticton V's. They were a powerhouse in the BCHL team. It's almost like they aren't like in their first year in the WHL just based on that, right? Like that they were always such a good team in the BCHL, but yeah, always good to see them succeeding in their first year for sure. And I just need to confirm, Dave, that you're going to be getting me 5 Ty Bauer bobbleheads tomorrow, though.
The best will be I'll walk in through the media door and then I'll just go to the main doors and you'll just see me like running. It'll be like, I'm trying to think of like what's like I'll just have like a giant box of bobblehead. It'll be like Contra. People are like, oh, what are you buying? What illegal, illicit thing? Oh no, it's just like boxes of.
I still remember we were there. We were there broadcasting live. I remember that first home game, regular season home game. They had an Andrew Ladd bobblehead giveaway, and I still remember watching people like come out with like 5 or 6 bobbleheads because they wanted to put them in their car. Like they didn't like they were worried that they would misplace them. So I still remember that. Now, obviously, we've had many bobbleheads since then, and it's Ties tomorrow, so it's going to be fun down at the old barn, right, Dave?
Well, Tyrel bobblehead day tomorrow at the arena. This is the 3 bobblehead version of the Illegal Curve hockey show today, and then tonight the Illegal Curve post game show.
Although shouldn't the bobblehead have been like his fists, not his head?
It's okay. Let's tap the brakes on the bobblehead talk. We can do it more later on tonight. That's it for us. Get on with your Saturdays, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Big thanks to Jeff Hamilton. Big thanks to Ty Bauer. We look forward to the post-game show later on tonight. Until then, we remind everybody that if it's Saturday, yes, I am power mad. You're right, Rob Mahoney. I know you hate me for it, but deal with it. Until later on tonight, we remind you that if it's Saturday, it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Smash the like button on your way out, and we'll see you later for the post-game show.